board meeting. We have a few applications this evening, and all new except one that we brought back. Let's see. Oh no, they're calling it new regulations with amendments. To start off with, I'd like everybody to please turn their phones off. You can leave your pacemaker and oxygen tanks going. I'm good with those. The second order of business is the minutes of the October 22nd meeting. Is there a motion from the board? Move to approve. Obi with a motion to approve the minutes as submitted. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mike with the second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed? For it, one abstention since I didn't show up last month. All right, so let's see, who's the furthest one back there? The lady with the long black hair. If you can't hear us talking up here, you raise your hand and I'll ask people to speak up. This room is horrible for acoustics, okay? Let me know. Those of you that come up and speak, you speak into the microphone, you speak to the board, we hope everybody can hear. All right, first application is number 3130, is a minor subdivision, preliminary and final plat of a parent tract of 30 more or less acre parcel with agricultural zoning designation. To be divided into 3 tracts consisting of 10.27 more or less, 11.34 more or less, and an 8.61 more or less acre tract, all to obtain residential rural zoning designation. This application is submitted by Donald B. Chapman on behalf of Gary and Arlene Chapman Trust, who are requesting these zoning actions located on the land being part of the northwest quarter of the Section 30, Township 44, Range 31, Cass County, Missouri, commonly known as 29410 South Sawmill Road, Harrisonville, Missouri, 64701. Mr. Chapman, I presume.
Yes.
Tell us about your story.
All right, I'm Donald Chapman. I take care of my mom and my late father's trust. My mother, she's mentally disabled and right side deficient from strokes, so she's full-time custody, a lot of medical. I've invested about $60,000 into the cleanup of the house and putting about 3,400 foot of water lines in to get this division going so that I can make a little more money for her on the tail end. It's at this point, it's ready to go. I've done all I'm willing to do. The house just needs too much work that I'm not willing to run it, or actually unable to provide the $300,000 so to get the house back up to par. So the best way forward, talking with all the realtors, was to subdivide the land, the house on one plot, and then access points to the 2 plots of acreage. And so that's what we decided to do, and that's what we're here for, so I can start selling it, pay some more medical, and just kind of get everything under control again.
Very sorry about that. You have to do this, sir.
It's life.
Any questions of Mr. Chapman? Thank you, sir. All right, is anyone here who'd like to speak in favor of application 3130? Anyone that has questions about it or would like to speak against it? Valerie.
He's done everything that's been requested of him. He's been in contact with the water district as well as far as getting water back to those other 2 tracts. They're all greater than 5 acres, so they would be permitted to have lagoons if they are unsuitable for in-ground on-site wastewater.
Okay, does the board have any questions of Valerie? The chair would accept a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve application 3130 as submitted along with the planning board report.
Okay, Lynn has made the motion to accept application 3130 as submitted. Is there a second? Second. We have a second. All in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Mr. Chapman, we're a recommending body. We're recommending approval of your application, but you need to be at the meeting at noon, December 4th, to represent your application.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Okay, application 3131. Minor subdivision, preliminary and final plats of a parent tract of 20 more or less acre parcel with agricultural zoning designation. to be divided into 4 tracts consisting of 3 5 more or less acre tracts and a 3.9 more or less acre tract to obtain residential rural zoning. This is submitted by Michael Yoder on behalf of Michael and Sarah Yoder, who are requesting these actions on the land being part of the east half of the southeast quarter of Section 11, Township 44, Range 30, Cass County, Missouri, commonly known as 35102 East 275th Street, Garden City, Missouri, 64747. Mr. Yoder, are you here?
Yeah.
Please come forward and tell us your story, sir.
I just bought a 20-acre tract of land, an old farmhouse, as an investment property. It's too small to farm. It's surrounded by other small lots, with houses on them, small acreage. So I decided to split it up, so that's what I'm doing.
Okay, any questions of Mr. Please hold on just a second, please. Any questions of Mr. Yoder?
There's only gonna be shared drive going out to Z on the last 2 lots,
Correct.
and then the others come out.
Yes.
Towards the-
The other two,
Okay.
it's 275th.
Okay, other questions? Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Yoder. Okay, anyone here would like to speak in favor of application 3131? Anyone has questions about 3131 or would like to speak against it? Valerie?
He has already been in contact with MoDOT for the entrance for the 2 northern lots, and he has also done a soil test on the existing home, and knows that it will be required to have an in-ground on-site wastewater system. Other than that, they've done everything that's been asked of them.
Okay, any questions of Valerie? The chair would accept the motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve application 3131 as submitted with the planning board report.
Okay, Lynn has made the motion to accept and approve application 3131 as submitted. Is there a second?
Second.
Clay with the second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We're recommending the body be at the meeting December 4th at noon on 3rd floor to represent your application, sir. We recommended approval.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, application 3132 is a lot split and rezoning of a parent tract of 94 more or less acres with the zoning designation of agriculture into a 5-acre tract to obtain residential rural zoning designation and the remaining tract to retain the zoning designation of agriculture. This is submitted by Ryan Bright and Stephanie Hilton on behalf of the Coleman Family Trust, who are requesting these actions on a tract of land in part of the southwest quarter of Section 31, Township 46, Range 31, Cass County, Missouri, generally located on the north side of East 203rd Street between South Bridle Lane and South Parrot Farm Road, Peculiar, Missouri, 64078. Ryan or Stephanie? And/or? Good evening, sir.
Good evening, board. My name's Ryan Bright. I'm here tonight trying to get approval. It's been our grandfather's it's been a heritage farm for 100 years. He passed last year, and so basically he left it to us kids and my mother, in which we're going to continue to farm it, but we all kind of just took off like want to take off 5 acres, so I'm just looking for the approval of building my barn dominium on there next to my sister and my mother, and that's about the extent of it.
Okay.
So,
Any questions of Mr. Bright? Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Okay, is anyone here to speak in favor of 3132? Anyone has questions or speak against 3132? Valerie?
Just as he stated, a few years back, we did, sister came through to split off 5 acres for her house. He's now doing the same for his future home. 5 acres would permit for a lagoon, if needed, so a soil test was not required. Is there anything else that's been asked?
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Valerie? All right, the chair would accept the motion at this time.
I make a motion to approve 3132 as submitted by the
accept 3132 as submitted. Second.
I'll second it.
We'll go with Mike this time, Clay.
Don't matter.
All right. All in favor, aye? All against? Motion carries 5-0, Mr. Bright. December 4th at noon, third floor.
Thank you all
Yeah,
very much.
take care, sir.
All right.
Application 3133, subdivision. This is the preliminary and final plats to be known as McCulloch Acres of a parent tract of 20 more or less acre parcel with ag zoning. We're going to divide this into 3 tracts consisting of 6.01 more or less acre tracts, all to obtain residential rural zoning designation. This is submitted by Michael Huffman on behalf of James R. and Kimberly A. McCulloch, who are requesting these zoning actions on the land located in part of the east half of the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 29, Township 45, Range 32, Cass County, Missouri. They also know it as the north side of East 241st Street, just west of Lucille Lane, Peculiar, Missouri, 64078. Mr. Huffman, I presume.
That's me. We were asked to survey this tract into 3 tracts for a family. The mother and father's going to take one, and the daughter and son-in-law, and then the son's going to add one. So it's going to be a family affair for the subdivision. They don't, they think they'll have a house up in a couple of years. They don't know for sure, but they'd like to get started on it when they can.
Any questions of Mr. Huffman? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone like to speak in favor of application 3133? Anyone would like to speak against or have questions about 3133? Okay, Valerie.
With this action, there is going to be a private road that runs up the east side of the property. It will remain a private road. It will not be under county maintenance. Other than that, there's going to be a water line extension. So the water department said they would have adequate service for each of the residences. And they've done everything that's been asked of them.
Very good. Okay, the chair will accept the motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve application 3133 as submitted along with the planning board report.
Okay, Lynn has made the motion to approve application 3133 as submitted. Is there a second?
Second.
Clay with the second. Any questions of Valerie? You sure? Okay, all in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 5-0, Sierra. We are recommending approval, Mr. Huffman, December 4th at noon, third floor. Yes, sir. We're moving right along so well with lot splits and rezoning. We're going to move the 6th application, 3135, to the next slot and move application 3134 to the last slot. So, application 3135, lot split and rezoning of a parent tract of 20 more or less acres with the zoning designation of agriculture into 5 more or less acre tract and a 14.9 more or less acre tract, both to obtain residential rural zoning designation. This is submitted by Clay Kohler on behalf of Kohler Family Trust, who are requesting the zoning designations described on a tract of land located in part of the west half of the southeast quarter of Section 7, Township 45, Range 30, Cass County, Missouri, and commonly known as 21701 State Route 7, Pleasant Hill, Missouri, 64080. Mr. Kohler.
Hello, so this 20 acres was originally part of a bigger farm that my grandfather farmed many years ago. He sold part of it to his brother. The opportunity came up for me to purchase it, just the 20 acres and a house currently. Going to cut off 5 acres in the house. My son, who just recently got engaged, is going to move in there this summer, and then we'll determine if we're going to keep the remaining 15 or possibly sell it off.
Any questions of Mr. Kohler? Thank you, Mr. Kohler. Anyone here like to speak in favor of application 3135? Anyone here would like to ask questions about or speak against 3135? Valerie?
Mr. Kohler's already been in contact with MoDOT in regards to the entrances. We have emails that show that those are approved. They would both permit for wastewater stabilization ponds due to the size, and other than that, they've done everything that they've been requested.
Very good, as we would expect. Board would, chair would accept the motion at this time.
Well, I guess I'll make a motion to approve application 3135 as submitted along with the planning board report.
Okay, Lynn has suggested that we approve 3135 as submitted. Is there a second?
Second.
Obie with the second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 4-0, Mr. Kohler. December 4th at noon, 3rd floor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's do application 3134. It's a conceptual and special use permit for an event space venue on a 129 acre or more or less acre tract currently zoned agriculture. This is submitted by Matthew Brown on behalf of himself and Deanna Brown, who are requesting these actions on the land located in part of the northwest quarter of Section 33, Township 46, Range 33, Cass County, Missouri, commonly known as 1401 East 195th Street, Belton, Missouri, 64012. All right, Mr. Brown, good evening to you.
That's right, good evening.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're proposing to open a family-owned and operated wedding and event venue on that property. And the proposal is to use the existing house and convert that and do an addition about 6,000 square feet onto the home. On the southern portion of the building between the lake and the home. And then parking would be to the north. And we think there's a lot of benefits to it. And we believe that when guests and couples come into town, they'll spend more on accommodations and dining in the Belton area and the county. We believe it's also a boost to local businesses, small businesses, florists, caterers, photographers, and things like that. Of course, it creates jobs for the community as well, and provides tax revenue. And it's also a nice event space for the locals as well.
Have you contacted any of the surrounding neighbors just to see if they have any concerns?
Yes. So after I sent out the letters, I was contacted by a number of the neighbors and did have several meetings with some of the folks that are here in the building today.
What were some of those concerns, just briefly?
I think some of the general concerns were like noise, and I think so for example, just generally in the area, most of the receptions are going to be indoors. I'd say 90-95% of all receptions are indoors, and that's where most of the noise potentially would be. There would be a few outdoor ceremonies, but generally they're relatively short in the scheme of things, 30-45 minutes, something like that. And I think by the nature of the addition that we're looking at doing, there really isn't a lot of outdoor space that's remaining for large outdoor gatherings of any kind, like for reception. So really the interior space really would be the best utilization for receptions.
And can you speak to the condition of the roads and maybe parking areas at your center?
Sure. Yeah, so from the parking standpoint, I think we'll have roughly 154 is what we're proposing, parking spaces. Generally in the wedding industry, well, the nationwide average for weddings is about 131, and typically about 50% of those would be cars, so somewhere in the neighborhood of 65 cars roughly on average would be needing to park. And I guess, what was your other question?
The condition of the roads, with traffic coming in and out.
Okay, yeah. I think with 65 cars, I don't think that's a large number that are coming in and out necessarily. I mean, the roads are generally fine. Most of the traffic would come from probably homes from the north to the south, and then turn to the east on 195th.
And will you be having events there 7 days a week or just weekends?
Most of the events would occur on Saturday night. That's the biggest day for it. Then Friday nights are the next priority. Sundays a lot less. So there's a possibility of having some events during the week, but extremely unlikely. Most all the events would typically be Saturday night as a priority, or weekends for sure.
Do you have a timetable on the new addition?
We'd like to start construction in 25 and finish in 25 as well.
Are you familiar with Cass County and the Belton area and all that?
Yeah, pretty familiar, sure.
What is gonna be your max attendance for the facility?
Let's see, I think our max occupancy was 458 is the max occupancy.
Okay, that was gonna be for the 12,000 square foot building that you're no longer doing. What's it gonna be for the house?
I think a much smaller number in just the
Excuse me.
reception
Okay,
area.
so it's gonna be,
Excuse me. If somebody out in the crowd has some comments to make, please come forward and identify yourself. And please come up so we can get you on the microphone, everybody can hear you.
Sorry about that.
That's fine. Just keep it straight.
Yeah, I apologize. Justin, generally with Homily Design Building.
Okay, what's your comments?
So comments are, the current facility, we had an original plan for a brand new facility that was gonna be 12,000 square feet. That has been nixed because we're gonna use the existing building that's on the site and do the addition of 6,000 square feet, and that's gonna be the main facility, and only one.
and what was gonna be your occupancy on that?
So the occupancy on the original concept was gonna be right around 500, and this one's gonna be reduced down to 458.
And that's including staff.
That's
Everybody.
That's maximum occupancy.
Boy, it's a nice piece of property, you know? Have you owned it a while?
Just since January,
It's a nice piece of property.
it is.
Any other questions? Okay, you asked me what the most common questions from the local neighbors was.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, is there anyone here who'd like to speak in favor of this application number 3134? Please come forward, sir, identify yourself. Also need you to sign in, sir.
Sure.
Three one three four.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Craig Wilcox. I'm with Arrowhead Air Park LLC, and I've come tonight to express support for Matt and Deanna Brown's event venue special use permit. And I speak for myself and the other 6 members of our LLC. Arrowhead Air Park owns the 159-acre parcel of land directly southeast of the Spring Lake property. And when we heard that they were requesting a special use permit for this type of business, we did have several concerns. Among those are noise from their events, possibly going late into the night, being amplified, and disturbing our future residents if we're lucky enough to develop our project. And also, We have already the private airfield MU 46 is approved by the FAA and established on our acreage. Even though we're not currently using it, we can, and I was concerned about their events having possible drones flying overhead to take wedding video. That's pretty common at outdoor venues. And also their application listed possible fireworks shows. Obviously those would be a concern for any kind of flight activity in the area. And then in their interest, obviously overflights by aircraft might disrupt their outdoor ceremonies. And trying to be a good neighbor, we wanted to make sure we had a discussion and address some of those issues. So I requested Mr. Brown meet us, and we did that a week ago, and I found him to be extremely professional, and we agreed that we can work through any possible conflicts or issues that could come up, as I've mentioned, and we look forward to this new business in the area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Appreciate it. Okay, anyone here who'd like to speak in favor of 3134, please come forward. Okay, we're going to get into the next section that is questions and those that might be against. We have a little rule we follow here that if I hear the same thing 3 times, that's all we're going to hear about it. So in other words, if somebody has the 4th person that has a problem with the roads, I'm going to cut you off. So keep that in mind when you come forward. So anybody here like to speak against the application or have questions, please come forward, ma'am, sign in and identify yourself.
I'm Peggy Bruce, 2000 East 195th. And I'm not going to say I'm really against this, but I can't say
Good to
that
see you again.
Yeah, hi.
Thanks for coming. Yeah.
There's a lot going on in our neighborhood.
Yes, there is.
And I decided to be involved, and so I appreciate the time tonight. I am standing here tonight in front of you torn about this proposal. I have met Matt a couple times, and I think he's a good, upstanding citizen, and I can respect his dream and vision for this business venture. At the same time, I stand here with my community neighbors, all of whom purposely made a choice to move to the country. And why do you move to the country? To enjoy the peace and quiet, the night skies, enjoy your animals, etc. And even though Matt has scaled back his plans, I am disconcerted that the numbers I'm hearing tonight from the architect are larger or higher than what he shared with us in our neighborhood meeting. So that's disconcerting that the capacity of the venue is larger than what we were led to believe. But more importantly...
When was that meeting?
Last week? Yeah, just a few days ago.
In a week?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that even though he scaled that back, there are still major concerns because it's going to impact us negatively any way you look at it. We, as a neighborhood, enjoy one another's company. We enjoy sitting outside in the evenings, listening to the crickets and the cicadas. And as Matt explained to us, to make the business viable, he needs to host 60 weddings a year. Now, nobody gets married in the middle of January. So, as he said, the prime wedding season is about 6 months long. 60 weddings over 6 months is 10 weddings a month. And as he said today, most weddings, if not all of them, will happen on the weekends, often at night. So, think about Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday, wedding. Every weekend during the most enjoyable time of the year around here, spring and fall. And those of us, I'm within 1,000 feet of his property because I got a letter. You know, all of my neighbors are not much further away than I am. All of us sitting outside are no doubt going to hear the DJ with the loudspeakers. Folks making toasts, making speeches, and dance music until late into the night. I don't know what the ordinance is in Cass County, but Matt plans to at least let music run to 11 or 11:30 at night. Every night, every weekend, during the spring and the fall, the nicest period at the time out here. And we're gonna have to hear that. We're gonna have to listen to that. Even if I'm in my house with the windows open and I'm not running the AC or the heat, I'm gonna hear that. Now, the argument has been made, there's a train track that goes right by there. We hear the trains already, that's noise. Sure it is. But that's white noise. And that train is passing by. We hear it for a few minutes, not 4 or 5 hours of a weekend night. Think of the subwoofer going. You're gonna hear that, because sound travels like crazy in the country. So that's my number one concern. Number two, drunk drivers. Those of you that have been around long enough know that the intersection of 195th and Holmes is a bad intersection. I can personally recall 2 to 3 fatalities and numerous accidents. I myself was rear-ended facing south on Holmes Road, trying to turn east onto 195th. I was rear-ended and flipped over into the ditch. So it's a bad intersection already. Couple that with alcohol. So average wedding size, 130 people. Some percentage of those people are going to have had too much to drink. Regardless of how well a bartender can try to regulate that, somebody's going to go out onto Holmes Road late at night in the dark on a country 2-lane highway trying to make it back to the city. And I worry. I worry for the wedding guests. I worry for us as residents with that much alcohol floating around on a weekend night. That's just asking for trouble. Other concerns, trash. As we talked about, fireworks, balloons, whatever. Prevailing westerly and southerly winds, it's going to all blow onto our property. And it reminds me of when people come out to Cass County to buy fireworks, and they keep going south, and they come onto our road on 195th, and they park, and they shoot off their fireworks. We're the ones that are left to clean it up the next day. So I just feel like that's another burden on the community. I have horses in a horse pasture. I don't want my horses eating balloons and getting caught up in string and everything. That's another thing I'm going to have to look out for. Light pollution. So Matt had described to us the parking lot, which is now larger than what it was described to us, as having low-level lights and would be with lights that are manually switched on and off, so they're not on every night of the week, so that's good. So that's part of my point about trying to be reasonable about things. But if there's a wedding every weekend night, there's going to be a glow of a parking lot 1,000 feet from my property. It's going to feel like a Walmart parking lot out in the middle of the country, out in the middle of a pasture. And that, again, is another negative impact to our enjoyment of country living. Finally, there are other wedding venues in Cass County already. Just north of us on Cambridge, Silo Hills Farm is a wedding venue which recently opened. I hear there's one down in Cleveland. So how many wedding venues does Cass County need? How many wedding venues should we be, as residents, asked to accommodate? But it really boils back down to noise. How can that noise be controlled? How can it be regulated? What recourse do we have as residents based on that? So, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else like to come forward? Please come forward, ma'am. Identify yourself and sign in. Mr. Brown, make note of these concerns. There'll be a period of time for you to address these, okay, at the end of this section. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Vanessa Perensky. I live at 200th and Prospect. You asked great questions before about all those questions that you had. Those were all questions that we had asked Matt during our meeting, and he is a lovely man, and I enjoyed speaking with him. My biggest frustration with all this is the fact of I feel like all these people don't live in this community, and they come and want to make my neighborhood their next business venture. And it's really kind of turned into a circus out there, and I didn't even think about the drones and the fireworks and we have other things going on. And anyway, I appreciate you guys hearing all our concerns, and it's just very concerning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next.
Patsy Swafford. And only if I lived in Leawood, Kansas, would I be Mr. Brown's neighbor. And the only thing I would like to say, I echo whatever the objections they have. I have a question, and then I have a fact. The question is, in the last 2 or 3 years, there have been people outside of Cass County and surrounding counties that want to start projects here. Why? Possibly because they can't start them in their own state, or own county, or can't get them approved.
It's called low density.
What?
Low density, low taxes, low property values.
Yeah.
That's the ticket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, now this is a fact. They have events over there, and every one of them involve alcoholic beverages. And there's a blind intersection at State Highway D and 195th Street. And drunk driving and blind intersections don't go together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, anyone else like to speak? Okay, Mr. Brown, we have a few questions and concerns. Please come forward and address those for us.
Okay, one of the concerns regarding the light pollution, as I had mentioned to Peggy at our meeting, we do plan on just doing very low lighting around, any parking, because we do want to maintain that as the look and feel of that particular area.
Have you already researched that and understand the financial commitment to that and have made that part of your SUV? The low density lighting and all that, is that in there?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, we do intend to do that for sure. We just need to have some lighting for the parking lot, just for safety reasons. And then the question was brought up around the occupancy, and the number that we stated today was really the total building occupancy. When I was speaking to our neighbors at our meeting, I was just speaking to the reception area occupancy, which is 300. And so we certainly won't be having any events that are like 454, whatever that number was. It's really going to be much less than 300 even in the reception space, because just by the nature of the way the wedding industry works, you have to have room for tables and chairs in the particular area. So likely with round tables and chairs, it'd be really probably closer to 200. But just from a functional standpoint, it'd be roughly that number. And as I mentioned previously, based on the building design, we really are not going to have much space at all for outdoor receptions. So I really think they're all going to be, for the majority, going to be indoors. We do plan on installing sound deadening materials within the building itself, which should help as well. It helps with the interior acoustics and also helps, keeping the sound within the building itself. And then regarding trash and so forth, our plan is really to elevate the property itself, keep it super clean and nice, update the landscaping, and really do a lot of work. And part of the selling feature is to have a really clean, nice, manicured place. So after any event, we would certainly clean up anything and make sure that's not blowing anywhere around the neighborhood for sure. I think that's about it.
Were you aware of the airfield project going on when you made the acquisition of this property, sir?
Yes, I sure was.
Was that part of your reasoning?
No, it wasn't. It didn't play a big role, one way or the other.
Have you been in this business and industry before?
Have not been in this business before, but I've owned and run my own business since 2006, a different type of business.
Was the property listed, or did you come about it privately? Or?
Privately. Yeah, we essentially just knocked on the door and asked if they'd be interested in selling the property.
Okay, any more questions for Mr. Brown? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much.
Council.
Just real quick.
Sir, the section for you to speak is over. I saw you over there shaking your head, but you didn't raise your hand when you were doing that, so I apologize, sir. Valerie?
Based on their conditions of the special use as of now, unless the board sees to change it or make some other alterations, their days and hours of operation are Monday through Sunday from 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. Any DJ or band will end no later than 11:30. DJs or live music shall not impact neighbors. Trash and debris will be placed in the outdoor container location every evening and picked up routinely by a selected trash service. Originally, it said attendance shall not exceed 100 in the existing building, 450 in the proposed 12,000 square foot building, which has changed since they made application. I do think we need to have a solid occupancy number if you choose to recommend approval tonight for this, for the existing structure with the proposed 6,000 square foot addition.
Are those changes, have they already been included in the, amended the SUP? They just,
These came in after they
are
made
those things that have just come about tonight?
They have come out since application was made, since the packets were mailed out. So within the past
So
couple of weeks.
we have an SUP that is, it's not factual, it's not correct versus what we have in print and what's being discussed.
Yes, what the original application was compared to what their changes have been since then. That is correct.
Mr. Brown, please come forward. All right, Valerie, let's see if we can go ahead and do this tonight.
Okay.
All right, so line item, the things that are currently in the SUP documentation and what has been verbalized, it kind of sort of appears to us a change. And we'll see what they want to say with respect to the first or the second.
Okay. So the initial one was the attendance shall not exceed 100 in the existing dwelling, 100 people.
Correct, that's correct. An existing dwelling without it being renovated.
Okay.
Okay, speak loud so if I can hear
Yeah,
you.
sorry, in the existing dwelling without renovations, the original scheme was to keep the existing building at 100 and then have the new facility, 12,000 square feet.
Okay, so for clarification, the new 12,000 square foot building is not happening.
Correct.
That's
So it
correct.
will not be part of this SUP. So what is gonna be your max occupancy that you're setting for that building with the addition and
The
renovation?
existing structure.
And so this is a tricky question because
Nope,
it's
it's not.
458 as a max occupancy by code, but what you can actually fit in the reception area is 300.
I need to know what he's gonna say the max occupancy is gonna be as part of his SUP.
You guys need to tell us your number and then we will visit about that number.
So 300.
Okay, 300.
Okay. Did the board catch that? The existing structure, right?
Yes.
With the addition,
That's right.
And renovations.
and yes.
300. Go ahead, Val.
Okay.
The current structure is 100.
The current structure is gonna be renovated and have an addition to it. So this
Okay,
essentially won't take place until all of those renovations are done.
Okay, so
And the
it won't
addition.
be open until the whole thing is totally done.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, correct. There will not be any food prep on site. All food will be catered from whoever they select as caterers,
That's correct.
correct? You're stating that there will be no outdoor ceremonies, because
There-
there's not room. Is that what you're saying?
No, there will be outdoor ceremonies and outdoor receptions, just limited number of receptions outdoors due to space constraints.
This is 130 acres.
Right, it's really the portion in front of the water, and just the way that the ground is formed, and with when the addition is built, there's really not a lot of room between the building and the water itself. And then the ground really moves up on both sides. So I guess theoretically, if someone really, really wanted to have a reception in some other area on 130 acres, that's possible, but that's just generally not the way that it works in this business. They want to have a reception near the building itself.
So
So should we address that it's 300 occupancy period for the property as a whole.
So are you suggesting that there may be more than 300 at a wedding because of the outdoor capacity?
No, no,
In toto, 300, whether it's
correct.
Indoor,
100 on the
outdoor.
inside, 200 on the out, whatever.
That's right.
Okay.
What's the tree density? They used to have some tree density. Still have tree density at all?
It's heavily treed all the way around the property.
Yeah. That's south and east side, and, yeah.
Really all the way around except for really on the north side,
Yeah.
so to speak,
Tree
right where
line
195
lane.
is. That's right, the tree line lane.
Go ahead, Valerie.
Any lighting beyond the existing shall consist of ambient type lighting and shall not encroach on neighboring properties. That is the extent.
Say that again, please.
Any lighting beyond existing shall consist of ambient type lighting and shall not encroach on neighboring properties.
Yeah, so you guys understand the down ambient lights.
Yes. So we also did, our company did White Iron Ridge, which is in Smithville. Beautiful facility, backs up to a neighborhood of a density of about 300 homes. And they had a lot of the same concerns, and we addressed all those concerns with acoustics on the inside, because that's key. The low lighting, which is also key, because you don't want to disrupt the neighbors and, take away the stars and everything else, because that's why they moved there in the first place. And then also for ingress, egress, we're actually going to add another entrance and exit to the property, which is going to be the only way to exit the property is going to be on the east side of the property, so coming up to the northeast. And that's where we get the traffic control off to the side to give a little bit more better sight lines from each way and get away from that main intersection there, so it gives people time to recognize.
So you're well aware of what we're talking about.
I'm fully aware. This would be the fourth event space that we have built.
Pardon me?
This would be the fourth one that we have built. in the
Okay,
last
so
6 years.
You've addressed the lighting in previous projects, so you know the expense and what that means. And you
Yes, sir.
shared that with Mr. Brown.
Absolutely.
All right.
So,
Go ahead, Clay.
well, Homilly's a very reputable builder. I do know that, but I just don't understand why we got some confusion here. I feel like we're writing their SUP for them instead of them having all their ducks in a row and then submitting it.
And I can answer that question. So during the middle of this process, we stopped right after we provided the original SUP, and we had a discussion, myself and Mr. Brown, and thought, boy, this is quite a big expense to go into this brand new facility, and quite honestly, it's a waste of the property when we have a perfectly good structure that's there that we can add on to, right, and help keep the beauty of the property more intact, because that was his original concern. And so we shifted gears, and that's when I contacted Sierra, I believe, and said, hey, Sierra, we're going to change this. It won't really modify the SUP as much. We're going to have less occupants, but we're going to use up less square footage and have less parking. The parking is based off of the max occupancy load, but it would be reduced down with your guys' permission. I'm sure he would love that. Nobody wants to put a big Walmart parking lot at all. So if we can reduce that down to 90 parking spots, it'd be great. And overflow parking in case there's all 300 people decide to drive separately, then they can do that, off parking lot on grass.
Well, Clay's position is the way we normally handle this. We'd send you back. We don't have a meeting for another, 2 months?
Till the end of February.
So I'm trying to see if we can get something done that the board will take a look at and approve.
And much appreciated, because that's what we understood as well, and that's why we asked, hey, if we make these modifications, can we still present this to the board?
What else, Valerie?
That is all that's lined out as far as special conditions.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, does the board have any questions of Valerie or of Mr. Brown or any of the other folks that have spoken this evening?
So,
Clay.
please restate the max occupancy for the property, the entire buildings, 150 acres or whatever it is, 130 acres.
Based on the statements tonight, attendance will not exceed max occupancy of 300 for the property.
Including
as a whole.
guests,
Staff.
everything.
Yeah.
And is there anything documented as far as where this other entrance is going to be put in? And is there anything documented on that?
That's located in Mount Pleasant Township, and they have their own road district.
says comfortably accommodate larger groups, which before they have referred to craft fairs and Halloween festivals and Easter egg hunts. I'm questioning how they're gonna control a car show with only 300 people. But that's just my question.
And that question's been asked multiple times as far as max occupancy. And then was it designated the existing structure, the proposed structure of the property as a whole? And they stated tonight, max occupancy for the property will be 300 people.
Who's gonna regulate it?
It will be their responsibility to regulate it, and if they're found in violation, then they would get a warning and potentially a violation and could ultimately lose their special use permit.
Okay, Obi, any questions?
I'd kind of like to go over what we've changed here. I know you had the occupancy down to 300 and the low lighting. And what else did we change?
The low lighting was part of the original. The only thing that was changed was the max occupancy of 300 and removed the, originally they proposed 12,000 square foot.
We removed the additional new
Building,
structure
yeah.
has been amended out. And they're now talking max 300 on the existing structure with renovations and additions.
And property as a whole.
Okay, Mike?
Um,
Okay.
And this would be an event space, therefore it's not just like Lynn noted, it's not limited to just weddings or receptions. It'd be events in general with the hours that were listed and days of operation that were listed.
Clay, anything else?
No, I don't like not everything being documented properly before you got here. And being against a little bit of a time crunch, you know, we want to try to be respectful of the neighbors, we want to be respectful of the applicant, but if it's not right, it's not right. And the next meeting not till February, I don't see where that's really the board's problem, but so anyway, it's a little bit of a quandary, I guess.
Okay. All right, anything else, Valerie?
No.
Okay, the chair would accept the motion on application 3134 at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve 3134 with the changes that have been made tonight as submitted by the planning board respectively.
Okay, Obi has made the motion to approve 3134 with the discussed amendments this evening, adjustments to the existing SUP as submitted. Is there a second?
Second.
Clay with the second. Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Okay, the motion carries 3-2. Recommend approval. It will be presented to the commissioners on December 4th at noon, third floor, Mr. Brown. Yep. Okay, we still have, the board meeting is still in session. If there's discussion to be had with respect to anything that's occurred before, please step outside. We're going to carry on the meeting. application 3129, Cache County Amendments. The topic du jour is new regulations concerning data center regulations. Valerie. Comments?
There has been some suggestions from our county attorney since these applications were mailed out. I gave you guys new copies at the beginning of the meeting, highlighted some of those. I can go over those if you would like. One of the main things was the setbacks. They wanted a chart for clarification. In regards to the facility type, data centers, structures, and equipment from adjacent land zoning designations or use, and then what the minimum setback would be. So from data centers, which includes structures and equipment, from residential zoning would be 1,000 feet, from agricultural, commercial, or industrial is 300 feet, from educational facilities, places of worship, daycare, park, or lodging establishments, 1,000 feet, battery storage systems from residential, 1,000 feet, generators from residential, 1,000 feet, all facilities from public right-of-way, no encroachment except for approved utility infrastructure, and that was just kind of put in a chart. You go on to below that, item 10, there was additional setback requirements. 10A is a buffer zone where applicable, 100-foot deep buffer area shall be provided along property lines between the facility and adjoining non-participating residential properties unless waived by the adjacent property owner. The buffer may include berms, fences, or vegetation, screening designs intended to obscure the view of the facility from neighboring properties, features to minimize land disturbance and maintain natural aesthetics. B, modifications. Any requested modifications to setbacks must B1. Be identified in the SUP application, include a justification for why the modification is necessary and evidence showing no negative impact on adjacent properties or public safety. 3, be reviewed and approved by Cass County Commission following a public hearing and consultation with the Zoning and Codes Department. And 10C, written agreements. If setback modifications are approved with the consent of neighboring property owners, these agreements must 1, be submitted to the Zoning and Codes Department, and 2, be recorded with the County Recorder of Deeds at the applicant's expense. The other changes were on page 12. Additional notice of materials is required as part of the application submittal. They added, as part of the special use permit application process, applicants must conduct public outreach to inform and engage nearby property owners and interested stakeholders. The outreach shall include, and then there was A1 or A.I.1.2. Within those, essentially now it has to be written notice and it has to be sent certified mail. The 1 mile radius is of the subject property. Proof of mailing by a certified mail must be turned into the Codes and Zoning Department. On 2, that the notice shall be sent by certified mail. It needs to include the project summary, construction timeline, and included in that shall have instructions for submitting comments or inquiries. So includes the statement that was originally put on here last month. And the applicant is responsible for mailing certified mail or proof of mailing. It goes on to include for community meetings, applicants are encouraged to hold at least one public meeting to explain the project and address community concerns. The meeting location should be accessible and within proximity to the proposed sites. Documentation shall include a summary of outreach activities, including attendance records, copies of notices, and responses of community feedback. Must be submitted with the application. Failure to meet outreach requirements will result in application delays until adequate efforts have been demonstrated.
Are community meetings considered to be outreach?
Yes.
why are they encouraged to have a meeting in 4, letter I, and then in 3, documentation 2, failure to do it will result in delays? Why don't we just say applicants are asked to hold at least one public meeting?
Are required to hold?
Something. I mean, I don't encourage very well. I just tell you.
I know.
Okay. All right, just a thought. Be back there that stuff that's in the office.
So this was some verbiage that was put in there, and then they wanted to kind of reword it. So it's kind of listed twice to see which way
Oh,
the board would prefer for it to be listed.
yeah.
What is highlighted in yellow was what I had originally mailed to you. What is in blue is the rewording of it.
Is that from Paul?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, blue looks good to me then.
It's in regards to financial securities. Those of you that have not seen that, it's under bond requirements. States a financial security bond, escrow account, or other accountable or acceptable mechanisms must be provided to cover the estimated cost of decommissioning and reclamation. The following conditions apply. The financial security must be adjusted annually based on the consumer price index for all urban consumers or an equivalent inflation index determined by the county. 2, recalculation of decommissioning costs must occur every 5 years throughout the life of the project. B, annually during the first 5 years of the special use permit. 3, if recalculations show an increase in cost, the financial security must be adjusted to match the new estimate. If costs decrease, the county may approve a reduction in the required financial security. Bond requirements 4, in the event of non-compliance or default, the county may call the bond or use the financial security to complete decommissioning. Any remaining funds will be withheld until all work is satisfactorily completed. Which is similar to what was in there before, just kind of reworded a little bit.
What's that?
It was similar to what was there
Yeah,
before,
okay,
just kind of
yeah.
reworded
Yeah.
a little bit. I do believe that we have people here that would like to speak and make comments. In regards, we did receive an email from a couple that I gave to you guys at the beginning of the meeting addressing some of their concerns, or kind of points, maybe they want a little more clarification, things to be addressed such as that.
I kind of got that feeling the way those 2 guys come forward.
They are excited. They are ready to be here.
We asked you to raise your hand. You heard that. If you can't hear, you could raise your hand. Well, he heard that, though. He heard it. Okay. I like that. Now it's this, right? It's reverberating. All right.
The blue is what's different from what was online.
Okay, we're gonna open this up to, this is gonna be a question answer period. So if somebody out in the audience has a question, please come forward, identify yourself, sign in, and visit with us. I'm sorry. If anybody in the audience has questions, concerns, or wants to visit with us about this, please come forward, sign in, and identify yourselves. Good? Jesus.
Sir, you did say question, but just to clarify, nobody was trying to get across to you. No, when you said.
You want to visit with us?
You said question and answer.
Yes.
So that's a very specific thing. People interpret it wrong. That's all I'm clarifying. Where do I sign?
Just right here, just your name and your address, and this is gonna be 3122.
My name is Scott Howe. I live at 9200
Howe?
East Howe, H-O-W-E. Yes, sir. I live at 9200 East 201st Street, Belton 64012. Just got some basic comments. We just dealt with the data center issue there. My personal take is, yes, we need them. We need some reasonable setbacks, minimum 1,000 feet from anything residential, which is in there, but the buffer should be 500 feet. Sound barrier
We're
walls.
showing 100 a lot. You say 500?
But the buffer was 100. I think it should be at least 500.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
To the fence, and then you can have trees or whatever between the fence and the street. That's fine, but push things back a bit. Sound barrier walls around all generators to limit that sound that comes out. Low frequency sound is a huge concern. These things, folks in Loudoun County, Virginia, they can't get away from that low density sound travels around the world. It doesn't stop, so you got to try to do everything you can to minimize that. That it not be allowed to be zoned as or built in an agricultural zoning, that it would have to be some, in the appropriate industrial zoning based on the size of and scope of the data center. Electrical should be buried. Closed loop cooling systems should be required. One, it conserves water, but it also reduces sound. It may not be the most cost friendly, but it's the most environmentally friendly and sound pleasing, right? Anyway. Limit decibel levels to 55 decibels. I did say bury electrical, and yeah, these don't belong anywhere near schools. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, the one in Virginia, did you reference?
Yes, sir. Loudoun County, Virginia. So Loudoun County, Virginia is the epicenter of data centers. It's kind of known to be where they started clustering to begin with. They've been dealing with this now for 20 years.
What was the name of the county?
It's Loudoun, L-O-U-D-E-N. They have more data centers than I think anywhere else in the country.
One of the most wealthiest counties in the country.
Say it again, Clay.
One of the wealthiest counties in the country.
It's in northern Virginia, just outside the D.C. area.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Can I say one thing on the agricultural?
Yeah.
So one thing I want to make clear is that if they were to rezone to an industrial I-1, I-2, or whatever, I-3, and there was an SUP granted for them to have a data center on that property, limited to 25 years. At the end of that 25 years, it's not extended, the data center's gotta go. Then you have an I-1, 2, or 3 zone piece of property set in there that anything that's permitted on I-1, 2, or 3 could come in and set up shop on. Not saying that to change your mind or anything, I just wanna put that out there because a lot of people don't understand that. They think once that SUP for the data center's gone, it's gonna revert back to ag. It's not going to. So just putting that out there.
Right, I would agree. I mean, once you build a data center somewhere, it's never, even if it was zoned as ag to begin with, you're not going to be able to grow anything or raise anything there. You've destroyed it for agricultural purposes at that point. It's like a social farm.
Okay, anybody else would like to come forward?
My name is Chad Buck. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding on the hearing part.
Not a problem, man.
I think Valerie's done an excellent job on this ordinance, what she's been working on. I've reviewed it a few times, and I think she's done a good job, and there's been lots of work to be done on this. Data centers is a kind of a big topic around Cass County, and there's a large contingency of people have done a lot of research on this subject, and we have been to many of the data centers, the large hyperscale data centers around the country, and the smaller ones that are there's 19 of them in Kansas City alone, of smaller scale data centers. There's larger scales that are up and coming in the Northland. Once you go and visit these facilities, you get a better understanding of why these setbacks and some of the things that we're talking about are a big deal. It's a different industry than I think we've examined or seen come to Cass County. It's quite a bit different. And they cluster. When you get one, you get many of them. The biggest issue associated with data centers is the amount of power, the amount of energy and water and power. So one of the things I would, as you said, don't like to be encouraged, but would recommend is that we consider setbacks on our substations. A lot of these data centers, and some that were even proposed in Cass County, are upwards of 900 megawatts. That's nearly the size of a nuclear power plant of power on 500 acres. That's just nearly enough power for 800,000 homes on a 500-acre facility. So you get very large substations. A lot of the substations are nearly 5 to 10 acre pieces just for the substations. So setting those back against residential, a lot of what I looked at is as it affects adjoining property owners, make sure they're compatible and congruency with the land use there. So I think the trend right now in the data center, definitely the hyperscale, is to find large acreage parcels and to create their own generation of power on there, potentially have power plants, substations contain that. So I think as this ordinance is looked at, currently a separate, if you're wanting to create a power plant or generation or substation, it's a separate SUP. I think the data center itself could have as it relates to substations, should be addressed in its setbacks instead of doing so outside of that SUP, in a second SUP, because they're going to have a substation in order to even have a data center. You have to have power. I think the other thing is when you talk about an I-1 setup, what would fit in a light industrial setup on a data center? So we've been talking maybe hyperscale, but there are smaller scale. There's enterprise size that are maybe 100,000 square foot. The definition that we've reviewed from hundreds of jurisdictions all across the country looking at different data center zoning is I-1, light industrial, needs to be capped or limited to possibly 100, 150,000 square foot max on a 25-acre parcel and 25 megawatts or less. So that anything greater than that size and scale would need to step up into the higher industrial zones, heavier I2, I3. I think that's an important distinction because if you're looking at a piece of land that's already part of the comprehensive plan, that's a light industrial area, does the data center fit and at what size? Well, I think as these things get big and hyperscale and you have all of the power lines, the water, the resources that have to come to them, it's not so much what's on site, it's everything that's coming to them that's burdensome to the surrounding property owners. So if there's a light industrial, there's lots of them. There's lots of things that are considered light industrial already in our current code. By virtue of that, could you do a 700 megawatt power plant, data center on that? If we don't dictate that would need to step up to a higher zoning. And as you get into I2 and I3, they become less compatible with the adjoining residential or land usages. So that's why we have the different intensities. So just as a recommendation there. So I think the 1,000-foot setback has been very well appreciated. I think because it's a special use, it's more restrictive, and then based on the application, it could be lessened. So it's kind of a different way of thinking about zoning, where you're more restrictive and then pare that back in the event that the particular land they're looking at is more accommodating to allow less setbacks. Last thing I mentioned, the security fences around these facilities, they are much like a maximum security prison. They're very secure. That's why I think that buffer zone, so if you're going to do a 1,000-foot setback, that 500-foot buffer zone gives that green space. And I do believe that we should have berming. I think there's one section that said to not do a lot of land disturbance on the screening or buffering zone. But I think there needs to be times where there needs to be more berming in those buffer zones. 15 to 20 foot heights seem to be the standard that's coming out if they're joining a residential area. And so I guess you need to find more of a residential district versus just a a piece of property that has a 5-acre piece that maybe is a residential, and I think that's some of what you've been talking about. You have the glare and visible condition in there, so I think you can use that as part of your independent study on each one. But that 500-foot buffer, and then make sure the fence is sitting at the back side of that 500-foot buffer. That's where they're from 8-foot to 14-foot tall fences. They have cameras on them every about 40 feet, or they'll use drones to go up in the air for their security. If you get close to the fence, which we've gotten, even on just public right-of-ways, gotten close to the, just standing there on a street, quickly we were approached by security guards because we were on public roadway. We were just looking at a data center and wanting us to identify ourselves. So if they're going to be secure, give that protection from the public so they don't end up getting too close to their fence and find out they've got security guards wanting them to identify themselves and drones and such coming at them. So a buffer zone, if you can imagine if you had a residential home next to that, if your kids were flying a kite, you guys had to retrieve a deer, you needed to somehow get on that line. 500 feet isn't that much distance without there's a 14-foot tall security fence. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, anyone else like to come forward and visit with us? Make comments, ask questions, give us answers.
I'm gonna write and then talk. My name is Becky Wiseman. I live at 9407 East 203rd Street in Peculiar. I did not hear the women's names because they were faced this way when they were saying that, but I did hear their comments. But both women said things that that I agree with both regarding of which application they're talking about, and that people move to Cass County to enjoy the outdoors and the outside.
You're talking about Peggy and Vanessa.
Yes, I don't know them. I couldn't hear, and I am getting older, so I can't hear a lot of times. But I can hear that HVAC system in there. My husband and I have visited about 21 data centers around the country, and we have measured the decibels on many of them. Standing away from the property lines of some of these, the lowest has been 55 decibels. So, and we have different little sound attenuator thingy-bajiggas that I don't know what they're called, but I know that they have numbers on them. So I also would even go a little lower, because I think that anytime that you're putting something in place, they push that limit, and then it just goes along that limit, as opposed to really just do the research of going lower to begin with, and then you still end up at 55. We do own an HVAC company, so we are very aware of the type of equipment that goes outside of these buildings, and they are loud. So that is something that I also agree with. The 1,000 foot back, we really appreciate. I hope that the cities also take these into an account. My only other comment, my question is, have you guys been to any? And I mean, I know there's a lot of research online, and just have you been to any that are within driving even? I mean, I've flown, I've been to Vegas, I've seen drones covering data centers, I've been to countryside. I would encourage, with that 1,000 foot, if they're with, not only the berms, but I have been to a couple of data centers that it's really nice in front of them, and it looks like a park-like setting. Not one you go and walk through, because a lot of them don't want you walking through them, but it does encourage that nature to still stay there of birds and deer, and so that, just to take into account. I don't know if how that can be, but.
So are you aware of some data center projects underway that might potentially target Cass County as a location?
I have a lot.
I'm talking about unincorporated Cass County. I'm not talking about the incorporated.
No,
anything like that.
I have a lot of involvement in the KCADC, and so I am aware of some things. Just talk. I don't know.
I see Tim Cowden on a normal basis, so I know that there are 16 projects wanting to come to this area, and Cass County is a target.
And, okay, you guys have mentioned small data centers, mega data centers. What would you classify any of those that you are aware of, this size category they fall in?
Well,
all categories or small?
all categories, all. There's a lot of interesting buildings. Some are not meant for a rural area at all. Actually, most of them aren't. I know that there are some that are prettier and smaller and quieter, such as like the State Farm one in Olathe, but it's so broad, but they're everywhere, and they're not stopping.
Percentage-wise, what would be the privately funded projects versus publicly funded projects for data centers?
Probably more private.
Government, tax dollar funded,
Well, no, I think,
none of that?
are you talking about having abatements, or are you talking, so funding
I'm
in
talking
that
about
nature?
who's gonna build the building and do all the data? Is it government run, government
No.
funded?
No,
Or these are
it's
privately,
tax incentives.
corporately structured entities?
Yes, with tax incentives.
Okay.
And I personally, I have a tax incentive on the building I own, so I'm very aware of abatements. And it's nice. No one wants to pay taxes. So, it's just, question and answer, I like it. And I don't like talking.
You don't like what?
Talking.
Boo.
I don't mind talking. I don't like being talking in front of people. Conversation I'm good with.
Okay, any questions?
Yeah.
Any more questions
No.
for Becky?
Oh, yes,
Hold on,
maybe.
any more
I'm
questions?
sorry.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for your work.
yeah. Hey, Scott, come here real quick. Okay, so, you mentioned this Virginia deal?
Yes, sir.
You say that it's massive?
Well, it's where it kind of started. It's the epicenter of the data center. They refer to it as, I guess, data center alley. They've been building them there for
Like
20 years.
Silicon Valley, this is data center?
Yeah, so there's data centers all over the country. There's different sizes and scopes. There they started smaller and they've been growing in size, but they've been building them there for 20 years. And the shelf life of these things is usually 15 to 20 years.
I have a photo on my phone.
Yeah, and recently there was one built, what was it, Manassas, I think it was, over in, Civil War battlefield. A several 100,000 square foot hyperscale data center was built in Manassas, Virginia. And it's so Loudoun County. If you just go, Google Loudoun County, Virginia, you'll see all kinds of stuff on there. People that have been living there. My wife actually reached out to a county commissioner in Loudoun County who was one of the commissioners that originally approved data centers to be built there, and he regrets his decision, which she's got lots of correspondence with him and many other folks from around the country. He actually sent us recommendations. Hey, ask for these things. At a minimum, this is what you would want. And
So that's what you've shared with us?
Yes, sir. Some of their
Now,
recommendations.
Okay, that's his opinion. Here's a chance for your opinion. What would be a general overall theme of the county or counties where these have gone in with respect to quality of life, not environmental, financially?
For the people that live there, their daily life, it ruins it.
Pardon me?
It ruins their quality of life at their homes.
Nobody makes more money, they lose money.
Yeah, the people that live there, it ruins their homes. Their home values are gone. Now the land value goes up. The value of land around a data center goes up. But it goes up because people want to, Google, Meta, Facebook, these trillion-dollar companies that want publicly financed or publicly funded deals to build their data centers. They just want to make money, but they'll buy the land up, they'll buy everything around it, and they cluster. The company I work for, I'm in the geospatial industry. We sell survey equipment. We have an office in Omaha. I've been there on the construction site when they were working in Sarpy County on the data centers for Google and Facebook up there, and then just across in Des Moines, they have one, I think, for Amazon. But they look for places with loose zoning, cheap land, power. You get those three things, they'll figure the rest out, because that's how they can make money. And they're gonna ask for, taxpayer-funded TIFs and other tax incentives, which, we've had conversations with some of the state representation, because there's state incentives as well that I think they need to look at. I mean, there are financial benefits to it, but it ruins everything around it. And I can tell you, the folks up in Sarpy County that live near it, and there it's a handful of homes. They're not even near subdivisions. But it's rural folks that just, generators kick on, you can't hear a thing. Electrical storms, we get lots of thunderstorms through here. There's a threat that power is gonna go out, they're gonna roll the backup power immediately if they're even concerned that they could lose power, because they can't, these things, they can't go without power. But yeah, I don't know if anyone's been to Smithville and seen what Met is building up there. It's massive. And it's the beginning stages of what they did in Sarpy County, Nebraska. But yeah, these things are all over, and we need them. But there's a place for them, and we want to, keep them away from homes and schools.
Okay, I've got a new speaker.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for coming back up, Scott.
You're welcome.
I'm Vicki Howe, and I live with him, Scott Howe, at 9200 East 201st Street. He's actually Mr. Vicki, but anyway, technical things, I'm not very good at that stuff, but I can tell you that when I learned about this, I reached out to people all across the United States living near a data center. I wanted to know what experiences they were having, because the whole human element, quality of life part that I was mostly wanting to know about. Every single one. I talked to someone from Tennessee, someone in Georgia, someone in Oregon, Texas, Arizona. There's probably more. I can't think of everyone right now. Every single one of them told me, fight it, try to fight it. You probably won't win. It's probably already a done deal. They said, if you can move now, get out. Get out while you can. That's what everyone said to me. One in particular, her town had a data center. It wasn't that she lived right next to the data center. It was that her property that she bought and built her dream home had huge, massive power lines cutting right through it. So her dream home. She's like, you need to get out now. So
Did she say how they went about getting easements for those power lines to go through her property? Was it something that was existing, or how did they go about getting those?
I don't really, I see those.
Eminent domain?
Yeah, she said the power company even came out to meet with her and said, we're not gonna put anything this close to your house, and they did it anyway. So.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and one other thing about quality of life. For me personally, it's very personal. Just because I've had health issues, environmental factors, the whole idea of diesel generators, whatever they put out, particulates from these cooling systems also, living near a power substation or power station, all those things to consider. So anyway, appreciate your time.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you coming up. All right, we're going to wrap this up here, Valerie. What other comments you have for us?
So at the end of the day, if an application is made and they check these boxes, we still have a decision making whether to approve it or not.
Yes.
That's right. And
It's not like our hands are tied if everybody checks all the boxes. We can still take all the public comments, everything into consideration, and approve or deny.
correct. Correct. And, okay, so this, wasn't at the last meeting we had. Did this come up at the last meeting?
Some of it did. The last meeting, what was being proposed was 5 pages, maybe, of stuff is what we started with. And then based on conversations with the public and with the board, I went back and essentially revamped.
Okay, so I had a reason when I asked Becky about know these things come up in these meetings, we feel like we gotta vote on them tonight,
Okay.
but
We have a moratorium in effect right now. It was put in for 120 days, which will come before our
which
February
started
meeting.
when,
2 months ago. Or
so we're halfway through it.
at the end
But
of
we
last
can
month.
extend it.
A moratorium on applications for data centers.
Yes. And, I made the commission, or the Board of Zoning Adjustment and the commission aware that our next meeting for planning board is not till the end of February, and that the moratorium would run out prior to then. And they said that if we did not come to a conclusion, a solid set of regulations, to be recommended for approval by then, that they would consider the recommendation of extending that.
Okay, so the chair would like to know if the board wants to change anything that's in the existing draft document that she has handed out, as it relates to what you've read and heard. If so, share those with her. I don't think that requires a motion to provide you additional information, but what we want you to consider for setbacks, buffers, decibels, fencing, etc.
So the the comments were make the buffer, extend the buffers to 500, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't see any reason why we couldn't extend that to 500.
We got big parcels if they want it, you know. So
I don't know about burying all the lines. I know that's another set of problems. If you start requiring to bury all those lines, I don't know what the consequences of that might be. But I don't think there's any reason why we couldn't require walls around generators to try to buffer sound. I would think in most cases they're going to design them that way anyways, but I don't recall seeing something like that in there.
I think we should have.
There wasn't anything on the
It's
sign.
in there.
It is in there.
Everyone's a little different. That gas plant down there in Harper, when they revamped it, the gentleman who lived about a half mile away from it was complaining about the sound. They did a study on, he's on a little bit of a rise, and the sound was louder for him than it was next to the building. So they redesigned the muffler, supposedly. But it all depends on the lay of land. You don't know that stuff until you start running it.
Well, they'd have to conform to the decibels.
Yeah, but where's the decibels taking place? Is it coming
It says at the
close or is
property
it
line.
further back?
Where does it take place?
I believe it was at the property line. I don't think they
I
changed
mean,
it.
I think the public could take some comfort knowing is most of the time we're not going to be in favor of data center unless there's a real good reason. They check all the boxes. But,
Sure. I think we just need to continue to be as conservative as possible, because you're gonna get a shot at this, to do it this way. And so 500 foot, 1,000 foot, you know, is 55 the number, is that 45, or is that 50, you know, where is it taken? So I think we give Valerie the charge of making some of those recommendations and changes on this document. The tenor of the board is we, well, I certainly appreciate the four folks that came up and talked, because they provided a lot of information. I think we should use some of that as much as we can. Because they've done research, I haven't done research.
I have a question. What?
Is that better?
She has a question.
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, I haven't done a ton of research on the bearing of the lines. I do know that Cass County is very coveted, and I think that you guys need to think about Cass County as being a hidden gem
those are the clarifications I need from you guys.
The sound barrier walls, the closer to the sound, the better they do at mitigating. So if you put your sound mitigation
Yeah.
100 feet away, it just goes right over.
Okay, anything else from the line items of Valerie so we can move forward?
So we can table it and then ask them to extend the moratorium?
I will, yes.
Our next
it-
meeting is February,
Mhm.
and so that's about the end of the moratorium, right?
It'll be
Sorry.
over before our next meeting, but if you guys choose to table this till February, then yes, I will address the commission on the extension of the moratorium.
Okay, two things. One, the chair would accept a motion with respect to the tabling or voting upon this application at this time. Mike,
I accept it. Table it up.
you make the motion to table the
Yes.
3129?
Yes, table it.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Clay with the second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we've tabled the application 3129 to, well, we've tabled it. All right.
February.
The second thing is, the zoning department needs some help with respect to the moratorium and what to do with that since it matures in the February time period. So the chair would accept a motion with respect to the moratorium deadline change.
So moved.
What's your motion?
Make a motion to extend it another 90 days.
Okay, Clay has made the motion to extend the, is it the, what do you call it, the data center moratorium? The data center moratorium, an additional 90 days
From the date that the current one expires.
from the expiration date of the existing moratorium. Is there a second?
Second.
Obi with the second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries 5-0. We requested an extension of the moratorium for 90 days.
Okay.
Okay. And you want anything else on 3129? Are you ready to wrap it up?
Basically, we want to look at the setbacks of 1,000 feet from zoning designation, not necessarily use of the property. We want to see 500-foot buffer setbacks. We want to say, look at the potential of all high lines being underground. Decibels to 55.
Scott, is 55 too high?
Yes, 50 would be best.
50.
Loudon County, I would recommend 50.
Can you get 45 from them?
Yeah, I would ask for 45, but, I mean, it's a reverse auction.
Well, we don't really negotiate much once we put it into a regulation.
We're trying to be reasonable too, because most of them will say that 55 is what most generators should be set at, even if it's 10 feet away, if it's been the sound attenuation around the generator. The issue with this ordinance is this is when it's operating on a generator is considered a temporary operation. That's when you get the high sound. So if you want to clarify some of the noises when the generators are operating in its capacity, it can't exceed it.
50.
Yes.
And it's going to be set as max, whether those generators are run or not. It's going to be.
And they do have generators that can run at the quiet sounds, they just don't.
Sound barriers around generators,
Concrete sound barriers,
concrete sound barriers,
10 foot tall.
10 foot, what?
10 foot tall.
10 foot tall. 10 foot tall concrete sound barriers required around generators. Minimum.
Okay, the chair would accept a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Or the height of the generator, whichever's taller.
Okay. All right, I'll get this and then the other comments that were made tonight, and I'll get it revamped and back in these and back to you guys for the February 25th, 2025 meeting.
Yep.
It's really close. I would say it's really close.
Okay.
Lynn has made the motion that the board adjourn. Is there a second, Clay?
Second.
All in favor, aye? All opposed, the motion carries. You have something for me to sign, Sierra?
I could have swore Bob said we were gonna get out of here quick today.
What?
I could have swore he said we were gonna get out of here quick today.
That's what he said.
I didn't